This video is 100% original. From start to finish, you have never heard these thoughts in this way, and you are seeing a composition that has never once occurred in the history of time until this exact moment. In the last video, I told you that there was no rabbit, there was just the hat. I told you that you already knew everything I was going to say because you already knew all of the parts, the words and the letters. But if the parts are really all that matter, then why would you still be listening? Why would an arrangement of old and familiar letters and words produce new and unfamiliar experiences? It's because the structuralist perspective is incomplete. And by the way, if you haven't seen the last video yet, I recommend you go watch that one first because it helps make this video make a lot more sense. Now, there might not be a rabbit in the hat. There might not be. But there might be a cat in the hat. And she might even be holding a little cupcake. In the next 15 minutes, I will show you that despite the finite nature of humans and the universe, we are genuinely capable of infinite originality. Do you remember this peanut bar? It's not actually the same peanut bar. I ate the other one, but let's just pretend it is. Last time I told you that this was just a low-resolution clump of peanuts, salt, sugar, and peanut butter. I argued that if you'd had all of these ingredients, then you'd basically had this as well. And while an argument can technically be made for that, let's be real. Have you ever had a spoonful of flour, yeast, and salt? Is that really the same experience as eating a bagel? I mean, of course not. That's because when specific parts interact in a specific way, a process called emergence happens. Emergence occurs when a complex entity shows or does things which cannot be attributed to any of its parts. The experience of the peanut bar cannot be found within a peanut. Its flavor isn't in the sugar. The barness of this exists as a new property only in the relationship between its parts. You can't find the bagel no matter how long you analyze its ingredients. I zoomed into my face last time to show you the pixels, and I told you that they were just red, green, and blue little lights. And they are. But here's what the Gestalt view has to say about this. Your brain literally cannot see those as the tiny little lights that they are. Your biology forces you to see a face. As far as your experience is concerned, those little individual pixels don't even exist. Each individual pixel on its own is completely meaningless to you. I asked in the last video, what is it that makes us consider a bunch of pixels together as a picture? Or what is it that turns a sequence of pixel values into a story? I don't think a sequence of pixel values ever becomes a story. The story happens when you, the observer, experience the sequence of pixel values across time. It's assembled and exists within your perception. It doesn't exist in the thing itself. The idea of a picture or a story is a higher order reality. Yes, the structuralists may see those 3 million individual lights, but the intuitive human experience constructs and perceives the story and the picture from those pixels. And which feels more real to you? The individual meaningless pixel or the story and the picture which is created in your perception, which might change how you think and live? Last time I showed you these MKE shoes, I called them a 99% copy of real Jordans. But let's look closer at this 1% difference. See, in this particular instance, the designer of this shoe was obviously trying to minimize the aesthetic difference between this shoe and the original. But this doesn't mean that all slight variations of something will result in an almost clone. I mean, there are many instances in which a slight deviation can produce an entirely different result. For example, if I change a letter in your name, is it still your name? I mean, Anne Shirley had some pretty strong feelings about people who tried spelling her name without the E. If I change one digit in your phone number, can I still call you? No. In a complex system, even a 1% difference can create a new thing. I mean, we share like 99% of our DNA with chimpanzees, but that approximately 1% difference is responsible for the Sistine Chapel and satellites. I mean, in this instance, that 1% difference seems to be enough to consider humans and chimpanzees as other things, or At least it would seem a bit absurd to say that you should just round that 99% up and say humans and chimpanzees are exactly the same thing. Or I think biological classification in general might kind of fall apart if you didn't take slight variation in genetic information quite seriously. Yes, Carl Sagan said that to make a pie from scratch, you must first invent the universe. But this avoids the unavoidable fact that our human experience necessarily has the universe built into it. The universe is our scratch. And it might provide atoms, but it doesn't provide intent or intentional design. The atoms didn't want to be a pie. You made them a pie. Your creation of this specifically pie configuration of atoms is completely original, even if the atoms themselves are not. And this implies a virtually infinite set of potentially original pie atom configurations. Any variations of existing executions or designs results in a completely new and original pie configuration. Last time, I said that every story is already contained in a dictionary like this one. And that's true, but it's a terribly dull and uncreative way to look at things. Yes, it's true, 7% of all English language use is just the word the. And yes, we use the same 100 words to make up 50% of everything we say and write. But this doesn't deny the true originality of a message any more than it would to call every painting unoriginal just because it uses the same 7 colors. The originality of the whole of a message is not limited by this dictionary. It's enabled by it. A finite set of learnable words simply equips us with the tools and parts we need to begin building original stories. To illustrate the creative freedom given by a dictionary, let's consider a very limited set of just 26 words. Now, with this set of 26 words, how many scripts do you think you could write for a video of a similar length to this one? At this point in the revision process, the script was around 2,400 words, so we'll just use that. The number of unique 2,400 word scripts that you could make with just this limited set of 26 words would be around 10 to the power of 3,395. Okay, this number is so astronomically large that it's virtually indistinguishable from infinity and basically impossible to try and understand or communicate. But I want to try anyway. So to get just the tiniest bit of an idea of how massive this number really is, let's consider it in comparison with the number of atoms in the observable universe. It's an estimate. It's been estimated at around 10 to the power of 80. It goes without saying that atoms are really small and that there's a lot of them, but how small and how many are there? I'm not going to perfectly answer that, but a grain of sand has anywhere between 1 to 100 quintillion atoms. A quintillion is a billion times a billion. So that's a lot of atoms in one grain of sand. Now imagine how many atoms there are in the entire observable universe. Okay, so that's a big number, right? That's a massive number. Okay, compared to the number of scripts you could write with those 26 words, this number is almost exactly 0. It's so incredibly small. Okay, so how big is 10 to the power of 3,395? All right, well, imagine you took every single atom in the entire observable universe, and in place of each one of those atoms, shoved an entire one-for-one replica of the entire universe into that one atom. So you replace all atoms in the universe with entire universes. Now, the resulting number of atoms is still nowhere close, don't worry. Imagine you took that resulting number of atoms and again put universes inside each of those atoms. Are we there yet? No. You would have to repeat this nesting process of shoving entire universes into atoms 42 times before you even get anywhere close approximating the scale of this number, 10 to the power of 3,395. If that doesn't like make any sense, let's try with time. Imagine you have a timer start counting down with the number of seconds equivalent to the number of scripts you could write with those 26 words. it starts counting down, okay? Seconds are ticking down. And you sit there and you wait. And you wait for 1 trillion years. Then you remove one atom from the observable universe and you discard it, you throw it away. Okay, then you wait another trillion years and then you remove one more atom. Okay, now you keep doing that until the entire universe is empty. There's no more atoms. You just finished all of the atoms. Are we there yet? Are we at that number? Where's the timer? How much time do we have left? Okay, no, you have to do that again. You have to empty the entire universe again. In fact, you have to empty the universe 10 to the power of 3,000 times, and the timer still won't have budged. Like if there was a progress bar, you wouldn't even see the progress. The number is, it's so infinite, it's infinite without being infinite. The crazy thing is, actual infinity is still infinitely larger than that. Remember, this number represents only how many unique 2,400 word scripts could be written with just those 26 words. English has another million words to choose from. And there's another 7,000 languages you could choose from as well. And there's no set length to how long your script can be. I think you get the point. The dictionary and alphabet give us the freedom to create a very, very, very large number of original and creative stories. We're not limited by the dictionary. We're empowered by it. Zipf's law proves that language has a creative structure, but it doesn't prove that it has a creative limit. See, in the last video, we completely failed to address the other half of the frequency rankings. If 100 out of 1,000,000 words account for 50% of all language use, that means the other 999,900 words must account for the other 50% of language use. The most frequent words are like connective tissue, but the least frequent words, the ones in the long tail of the probability distribution, those are the ones that bring the originality and the creativity. If I use a rare word like melancholy or luminous or petrichor, I just learned that word by the way, I am using a rare part to make a rare whole. See, the whole doesn't need to be completely rare to be considered rare. If you have a very rare precious stone in a ring, that ring can be considered a rare ring even if the metal band is made of a more common material. You just need a little bit of spice to flavor a dish. It doesn't mean the rice is useless. The rice gives you a base to put the spice on. If I use the word the, that doesn't make me predictable. It just provides a stable ground for my original thoughts to have a place to stand. Claude Shannon showed that the information value of a word can be measured by its surprisal. I told you that because I follow rules of grammar and physics and whatever other rules, that I'm incapable of surprising you. But that's only partly true. Try to predict the next word I'm going to say. Pneumano-ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconiosis is a grammatically valid word, and it's the longest word included in a major English dictionary. It's also used almost never, so its probability is almost zero. The mathematical formula of a word's surprisal value is defined as the negative or inverse log of the word's probability. This means that if the probability of the word is 1 or 100%, then this would simplify to log of 1, which has a value of 0. So a perfectly predicted or probable word has a surprisal value of 0. That makes sense. And you can see that as the probability decreases, because it's in the denominator, the surprisal value will increase. Now, let's plug in the values of the probabilities of these two words to calculate their surprisal value. So the word the has a probability of around 0.07 or 7%. So if we were to divide this, we would get approximately log of 14. A log of 14 comes out to around 1.2. So the surprisal value of the word the is around 1.2. If I were to plug this value in, we would find that 1 divided by 0.000000008 gives us a value of 12,500,000. And if you take the log of this number, you get a surprisal value of around 7.2. So we see that the word the has a probability of 7% and a surprisal value of 1.2. And the word pneumono-ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconiosis has a probability of a very small number and a surprisal value of 7.2. So this is the logic behind how surprisal is calculated based on probability. Or think about a joke. A joke follows the rules of grammar, and it follows an often predictable pattern, right up until the punchline. And the punchline is only funny because it breaks that perceived probability. And you already know this intuitively if you've ever experienced that extremely disappointing feeling of trying to tell someone a joke that they've already heard, or show them a meme and they've already seen it. The success of a joke depends on it being somewhat unpredictable, while still remaining predictable enough to make sense. In a way, the existence of successful jokes proves the capacity of a message to be unpredictably original despite maintaining a predictable structure. Information theory isn't a prison. It's a scoreboard. The higher the surprisal, the more original the message. A viewer from the last video correctly pointed out that for a message to have truly maximal surprisal value, it must be completely incoherent gibberish. If I were to say something like, "Hello, my name is Constantine," well, that doesn't have a lot of information value. It has some maybe if you didn't know what my name was, but you've heard the pattern, "Hello, my name is something," lots of times, and so it has a fairly high probability and thus a low surprisal value. If on the other hand, I were to say something like, well, I didn't even know what I was going to say, so that would have a pretty high surprisal value. But it's also completely meaningless information. So it seems that if we want to maximize both the information value and the meaningfulness of that information value, we need to strike some optimal balance between predictable structure and surprisal. Every time we take an old, familiar concept and flip it on its head, we are generating newness out of oldness. And we can therefore produce originality by arranging old, familiar parts into a new, unfamiliar whole. Enter the Gestalt psychologists, Max Wertheimer, Kurt Koffka, and Wolfgang Kohler. They disagreed with Wilhelm Wundt's focus on introspection and his obsession with the parts. They thought breaking a mind into its atoms to better understand it was like breaking a bubble to see what makes it round. Once you break it, the roundness is gone. They argued that the whole is something categorically other than the sum of its parts. Not just more, but fundamentally different. Look at this. Do you see a white triangle here? Well, look at the parts. There is no triangle. There's just 1, 2, 3 Pac-Man shapes. There's no light hitting your eyes in the shape of a triangle. But you feel like you see a triangle. And that triangle that you're seeing is original. Your brain is creating a shape where there is no shape. There is no triangle in the sense data, but yet you see it. So you created that. Look at this. What is this? Now, what if we zoom out? Now what do you see? This leopard exists when its parts come together in a specific way in the mind of an observer or a perceiver. The leopard is a different thing than just the sum of its parts. It's something which is constructed and exists only in the mind of the observer. In Gestalt terms, this is known as reification. Your brain's ability to fill in the gaps between pieces to create a meaning that wasn't in the pieces themselves. Think about your favorite song. If I play a melody on a piano and then play it again on a violin, every single part, the physical vibration, the frequency, the texture, is different. But you still recognize it as the same song. Why? Because you aren't hearing the notes, well, unless you have perfect pitch, in which case I'm jealous, but you're hearing the relationship between the notes. The melody is an emergent property which exists only in your head. It's the same with a movie. A film is just a sequence of static photos. If you look at the parts, nothing is moving. There's no motion in a film strip. But the Gestalt whole of a movie is found in that movement. And that movement is 100% original. It doesn't exist in any of the frames. It exists only in the perceived relationship between those frames across time. And that is created in your brain. You are not a finite machine in a finite box. You are a creator of meaning. Welcome back to the Library of Babel. I told you in the last one that this library contains every thought, but I kind of glossed over something pretty important. The library is dead. See, a book with every possible arrangement of letters is not a library of knowledge. It's a library of noise. A viewer from the last video pointed out, quite profoundly, that the Library of Babel is the only library you cannot learn from. The library contains the cure for cancer, but it doesn't know it's the cure. Without a human to read it and recognize it and apply it, that information is non-existent. Information requires an observer. It cannot exist without one. The Bekenstein bound says there are a finite number of ways to arrange atoms. Fine, but it doesn't say there is a finite number of ways to interpret or experience them. Sure, the sunset you're watching might be triggering the same 6 million sensors you've always had. But what about the feeling you experience as you sit next to your favorite person watching the beautiful colors of the sunset on a warm Friday evening with no particular reason to get up early the next morning? That experience is an emergent event, completely unique in the history of the universe. It has never happened before, and it will never happen again. As C.S. Lewis put it, things never happen the same way twice. Your experiences, including your current experience of this video, are completely and deeply original. So we're back where we started again. I told you at the beginning that this would be completely original. I may have used the same old letters and words and pixels and colors, but I created a new and original whole. Yes, I didn't install any new furniture in the room of your mind. I just tried to rearrange what was already there. But in doing so, I created a new original room configuration, which did not exist before. The atoms in the furniture of the room didn't change, but the experienced room did. And we live in the experienced room, not the atoms. So the change is very real. The structuralist sees the Lego bricks, and that has its very important uses. But the Gestaltist sees the castle. You are not a sum of parts. You are the something else that emerges when those parts come together in a perfectly unique way. You are original, and you can create original things because synthesis is creation. You didn't just discover this video in a library. We built it together, just now, in the space between my words and your brain. I'd love to hear any of your thoughts, ideas, commentary, or criticisms in the comments below. The comment section is low-key genuinely my favorite place on YouTube. And if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share this with someone you know who would also appreciate this kind of stuff. It brings me great joy, and it really helps my channel grow a lot, and there will be lots more videos coming, and thanks for watching.